Good afternoon, colleagues. Let's try again. Thank you for joining us. Our apologies for that technical glitch from our end, but we've managed to sort it now. So we will just start our session. As I said before, yes, as I said before, this is our 5th information session, and our
I think you muted as well.
colleagues, we're just trying two laptops now. Is it better?
Perfect.
George, okay, thank you. We're just trying two laptops now. Apologies for that. Okay, thank you, colleagues, for your patience with us. Thank you to this coming to this final information session for this year. As I said, this is our 5th information session that focus on the broader research community. And the following information sessions for the rest of the year will then focus on our postdocs. So today, really, we will just open the floor to see if there's any questions with regards to the previous information sessions that we had. So the floor will really be open to you just to see whether there's any questions from your side. We have focused on the previous sessions. We have focused on the appointment process. We have focused on payments, introduction to the postdoc office, and then also we have focused on our international postdocs. So today the floor is really open to see if you have any questions from your end. Should there not be any questions, then we will just share with you a few questions or frequently asked questions that we have picked up throughout the sessions, and also some of the questions that we receive in general. So, any questions? The floor is open. Yes, Dr. Steenkamp?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I must admit I have not attended all those sessions because I couldn't. Some of my other colleagues have attended some of the sessions, but is there any way you can give us a summary of, if I'm an academic, I have some funding, I want to appoint a postdoc, where do I start and whom do I contact? I don't need to need all the information and everything, but I need to know who to go to and where to start, and are there very important things I need to know? I know already I have to advertise because that was always like that, but any very important pointers that you could summarize for me, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Dr. Steenkamp. So rightfully you said the advertisement process is the beginning, and also you said you've already secured your funding. So after that process is you would make an offer to the candidate, and if the candidate then accepts the offer, you will then inform us at the postdoc office that the candidate have accepted the offer, and we will then share with you what we call a postdoc information sheet. You will complete the postdoc information sheet and then submit all the supporting documents to our office.
Okay,
Yes.
Sorry, just to ask, so are you not at all involved in the advertisement, the selection process? Because in the past that was regulated. Now, who does that regulation? Who checks that that is done fairly and whatnot? Is it not like that anymore?
No, it wasn't like that before, as far as I know. That process is with the host and the host department. The interview process, the selection, the shortlisting, everything is happening at the host and the host department. It is only after you have selected your candidate that you now inform us of the chosen candidate, and we will then take the process from there.
Okay, so I can, but how am I then prevented from just picking a person and not sending out any advertisement?
We have encountered that as well before. So what we usually suggest is that you have a committee, a selection committee, that is usually two constructed out of 2 people or more people, which is usually the host, and then some academics within the hosting department as well. And then we would depend on the host really in terms of honesty and integrity for that process. So
But
once
do I submit a report on this process to you?
that is the postdoc. No, that is the postdoc information sheet. In that postdoc information
Okay.
sheet, we clearly ask you how many people applied for this position, where was it advertised, how many
Okay.
people were interviewed. Yes, that is part of that
Okay.
postdoc information sheet that you submitted to us. In the past, I would also like to say that we did have a case where positions weren't advertised, and when things go wrong, that is usually where we found out that the correct procedure wasn't followed. So you are more than welcome at any stage to include one of our staff members to sit on the panel, or one of the postdoc society members in the past were also part of the selection committees. So we are available for that, should you
Okay.
need our input. But it's usually the document that you supply to us where you say that you have gone through all the procedures and this was the chosen the candidate. Yes.
Do you have a sort of a document or something that or well, I would like to have this postdoc information sheet, but then also just I suppose maybe it is on the sheet. Who do I then contact once the person is chosen? Who is the contact person? Is that available?
Yes, the contact person would be us, the postdoc info@sun.ac.za. That is our general email address, or you can email me directly as well. I will share with you our SharePoint link as well as our website links, where all the information and the documents are available for download.
Okay.
And the process is explained in that as well. And there's a template also that you can make use of for the advertisement process. So
Okay.
yes, that can be shared with you.
So if I email you, you can help me with that.
Yes, I will be able
Okay.
to help you with that.
Okay,
And
thanks.
okay.
Good, thank you.
Take it thank you. Just to take it a step further, Doctor, what you have said there is once we receive the documents, we will then issue the award letter. And as if it's an international postdoc, we will also issue a visa letter. This will then give the details of the fellowship for the particular candidate, and it will also outlines the amount that the postdoc will receive and the appointment process. The appointment period for that specific fellow. Any other questions? Yes, you can proceed.
George.
Dr. Nel, thank you.
George, thank you, Isabel.
George, thank you, George.
I just want to ask, as you know, we have an international postdoc from Zimbabwe that we have appointed. So is there any specific policy in terms of work from home with an international postdoc? Because for international postdoc, that will imply, for example, in our case, that we will allow him to work for a week or two in Zimbabwe. Because in our specific scenario, the postdoc is planning to visit his family in September, October, and he asked me if it's possible to take, for example, 2 weeks leave and then add to the 2 weeks a week that he can work from home in Zimbabwe. Because I know it's a requirement that the postdocs should be on campus. They should be in Stellenbosch. You can't have a postdoc that is never in Stellenbosch. He should be on campus. So is there any specific policy or rules, or is it up to the host?
Yeah, George, like you just said now, the postdoc position is a residential position. So it's expected of the postdoc to be here at the university. However, there are exceptions. We do have requests, particularly after COVID, we have received requests for postdocs to work remotely, and we do consider that on an ad hoc basis. Usually we will go out to the funder And that arrangement is between the funder and the host. For example, if the NRF is the funder, we will get permission from the NRF for that postdoc to work remotely for a period. Generally, we do not want the postdoc to work remotely for more than 3 months. So 3 months is the maximum period that we do suggest for the postdoc to work remotely or to work abroad. And then also the working plan should be submitted to our office for record keeping purposes. And then also, if like I said, if the funder and the host is in agreement and there's a clear work plan, it shouldn't be a problem for the postdoc to work remotely for up to 3 months. I must just highlight, it's the exception and it's not the norm, but it can be considered.
I will just check in with you again.
Yes.
And if you say residential, it can be Stellenbosch or the Stellenbosch Business School, for example, eh?
Yes.
I mean, that's
yes,
included
yes,
in.
Yes, you're correct. Tygerberg campus, the business school. Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm specifically thinking about the postdoc that we want to appoint, you know, that will have 2 hosts, School of Accountancy and the business school, for example, because obviously the person will have to, I mean, we don't know how we're going to organize it yet, but
Yeah.
So
a person will have to rotate between the 2 campuses.
Yeah.
No,
Thanks.
that pleasure, George.
Thanks, Giselle.
Any other questions? Okay, colleagues. As I said, all of our information is available on our SharePoint link, as well as the postdoc information website. So afterwards, we will share all these documents with you, which clearly explains the appointment process and what documents is needed during this process. And then, as I said, you can reach out to our office at any stage. Our email address is postdocinfo@sun.ac.za. You can reach out to me directly as well, and we will guide you throughout the postdoc appointment process. So people usually ask us, like we said, we rightfully had that question also, what is the appointment or what is the process for appointing a postdoctoral fellow? I think the first thing there is the host must secure the funding for the postdoc. And then also all postdoc positions must go through the advertisement process. So those are the most important things. And then also once that process is concluded, then the host will reach out to the postdoc office and we will then liaise with the postdoc. What we do is we will keep the host in the communication throughout so that the host can be fully aware of what is happening during this process. It's also important to note that when you appoint a postdoc, is that the person should be within 5 years of receiving his or her PhD degree. We don't do any new appointments at Stellenbosch University if the person is not within 5 years of their PhD. I must say, like I previously said, there's always exceptions. If there's an exception to that rule, which is highly unlikely, but it do happen from time to time, then Prof. Sibasiso Moyo will have to sign off on that motivation that we all received from the host. So we don't have any age limit for appointing a postdoctoral fellow. It all depends on when the person received their PhD. So the candidate must be within 5 years of his or her PhD, received his or her PhD degree. Like I said previously, postdocs are allowed to work remotely. The necessary approval and the necessary work plans must be in place for that. It is an exception, it is not a rule, but we do consider that from time to time. So postdocs are registered on the SUN student system. Postdocs is not students and they are not staff. We can't use the HR system because of the tax payment that is involved with that. But however, we make use of the Sun student system for the registration to get the postdocs on the records and for reporting purposes as well. Usually this process can take up to 5 days to register a process, but that is if we have received all the postdoc documents. And like I said previously, that is the postdoc personal information sheet is needed along with all the supporting documents. And then we can register the postdoc on the Sun student system. The postdoc will then receive a proof of registration that will be sent to the postdoc directly, and that can also be shared with the host. The registration is renewed annually, and that is usually done during December of the previous year or January of the new year. Also, postdoc registrations take place throughout the year. So postdocs can start any time of the year. We do recommend that the postdocs start on the first of a month, and that just make the registration and the payment processes much more easier for the postdocs as well. Okay, in terms of postdoc payments, the minimum amount that we have for postdoc at this stage is 200,000 Rand per year. The maximum amount is 400,000 Rand per year. That is a soft cap. With motivation and approval, postdocs can, of course, receive more than that amount per annum. Although the minimum amount is 200,000 Rand per year, the preferred amount for postdocs is 300,000 Rand per annum. So we therefore request, or we ask hosts basically, if your postdoc received the minimum amount of 200,000 Rand per annum, please see where you can find sources to top up to 300,000 Rand, because we believe that 300,000 Rand is an amount that a postdoc can live on per year. If you take into account accommodation and all other living costs in Stellenbosch University, in Stellenbosch, the Greater Stellenbosch, it is recommended that at least the amount be topped up to 300,000 Rand per year. So postdocs are paid monthly, just like staff. They are not paid via the HR system, but they paid via a service provider that is IntelliMali. Postdocs do not pay tax. They receive a tax-free fellowship, an annual fellowship, and that is distributed monthly. The postdocs, unfortunately, don't receive any benefits like full-time staff members, but I think the biggest benefits that postdocs receive is that in fact that the fellowship is tax-free. Postdocs can work up to 12 hours per week. That is with the permission of their host. They can work up to 12 hours per week. That is work done outside of their fellowship, and they get remunerated for that. And that remuneration is done via HR, and that payments are subject to tax as well. Okay, I will now give over to Joan just to speak about IntelliMali. As I said, IntelliMali is the service provider that we make use of for postdoc payments. Postdocs payments are processed monthly from the 25th of each month until month end. Over to Joan.
Thank you, Rizal. Good afternoon, everyone. So IntelliMali is an external service provider, but they work exactly as a bank. So all those restrictions about third parties not being able to call in and get information, those same type of restrictions apply for IntelliMali. So we have a lot of questions with postdocs if they're struggling online to upload their banking details or update their cell phone numbers, they would want us to speak on their behalf with Untelimali. Unfortunately, even though the money comes from the university, once the money is within Telimali, we are still regarded as third parties. And then how do I register for Telimali is also a very common question. Because we share the information about Telimali in the welcome pack with postdocs, they sometimes or many times often try to attempt registering before we even get a payment form from them. That does not work. Telimali has to receive the payment from the university first before they allow the registration and the upload of banking details. So if you're a postdoc and you have not sent the payment form in yet and haven't gotten confirmation from us that the payment has been loaded, you will not be able to upload your banking details on the Telimali system. Another question that we get quite often is, how do I change my details on Telimali? So the cell phone number is added by our department at registration. However, if that number changes, the postdoc will have to contact him in Telimali on their own. Again, we are regarded as a third party, so we'll intervene if the postdoc has contacted in Telimali and they get no joy. But the uploading of banking details, the changing of cell phone numbers, the postdoc will have to do on their own. Thank you.
Just to add to what Joan said now, I think we said it in our previous information session within Telimali, there is an app that postdocs can download, so they can view their Telimali statements on there, and they can do all of these things like changing their personal details on the app as well.
Also, Isel, something that we are forgetting that's very important. So you find an international postdoc will start working abroad. Maybe it's an arrangement that they've agreed on with the host and the department. However, Telimali requires a South African bank account, and they require a South African cell phone number for a postdoc to transact. So if you are based internationally and you haven't made contact with our office regarding your international travel, then you won't be able to access your Telimali funds. So that's another thing we struggle with a lot.
Thank you, Joan. So just on to adding to that, international postdocs, we find that we have a lot of international postdocs that we appointed Stellenbosch University, and international postdocs should have a visitor's visa endorsed for research. I can maybe just share the previous slides with you as well that will allude to all of that information. It's important to note that there is exceptions, of course, or there are exceptions, and that some of our postdocs are on study visas, but those study visas are endorsed for postdoctoral research at Stellenbosch University. However, the preferred visa and the recommended visa is a visitor's visa endorsed for research, and that visitor's visa will be endorsed to Stellenbosch University. So international postdocs can only start to work once they are in South Africa, once we have registered them on the system, unless there is a prior arrangement that has been made. Postdocs, we have found that postdocs start to work without informing our office, etc., and then they want us to backdate payments. Payments for postdocs cannot be backdated. You can only get paid from the date of registration. Of course, it is recommended that international postdocs do have health insurance, and we do have accommodation available for international postdocs that is offered by our colleagues at the international office. In our previous session, we said we, as the postdoc office, strive to provide a one-stop shop for postdocs. However, the mandate for internationalization is still with the international postdocs. So if we cannot assist international postdocs with any queries, we will refer them to the international office. But as far as possible, we will strive to assist international postdocs. The visa letter is the letter that is issued from our office, and that is the letter that will then give the postdoc permission to apply for the necessary visa that is needed. We have gone so far to put in our letters now that what type of visa is needed for the postdoc, because we have found that some postdocs have come with incorrect visas to be registered. Also, another question that we get quite often is the renewal of fellowships. It's important to know that fellowships can be renewed throughout the year. The renewal of a fellowship would depend on your start date. So fellowships are usually for 1 year, and we would recommend that you submit your supporting documents for the renewal of your fellowship at least 3 months in advance. If it's an international postdoc, up to 6 months in advance, because the renewal of the visa is also something that should be taken into consideration. So the documents that are needed for renewal of a fellowship, usually it's an extension MOA, an extension memorandum of agreement. That will be a supplement to your main memorandum of agreement, as well as your payment form. For international postdocs, the add-ons would be a new visa and medical proof of medical or health insurance at the end of the day. It's important to note that we send out notifications from our office, usually from October onwards to December. However, that notification might not be applicable to a postdoc at that stage, but it's important that the postdoc receive that renewal information so that they can have it for their own records and then submit the renewal documents when it is applicable to them. For example, I start in March, so which means my fellowship would be renewable next year, February. But it's important then that I should submit my documents, for example, in December or early January for our office to screen the documents and then also to process the payments again. A progress report, what we also found is some postdocs tell us that they weren't aware that they should submit a progress report. A progress report is usually requested by the funder of the fellowship, but I usually say it's in any case good, even if a progress report is not requested from the funder, that a postdoc submit a progress report after the first year of their fellowship. That is good to monitor progress, and it's also good if you need to apply for future funding as well. With the NRF, for example, where the postdoc is part of a bigger grant, and we refer to the postdoc as a grant holder linked postdoc, then the NRF grant holder, which is the researcher, is responsible to submit a progress report to the NRF. So it is not required of the postdoc to submit a progress report, but in all goodness and fairness, it would be good if the postdoc can submit a progress report to his or her host. That would help the host to submit the final report to the NRF. As I said, that is our email address, postdocinfo@sun.ac.za. We're in the Krotua building if you would want to come and visit us. And yes, thank you. That is the end of our presentation. Any questions?
Sorry, can I ask another question, please?
Yes, you may, George.
So for the payment to be tax-free, should it be paid by your office, or let's say that we want to pay a postdoc a bonus based on his performance, and the total amount is still, because I think the tax, it's only tax-free up to 400,000. I don't know.
No.
It's tax-free, okay. But let's say we want to pay him an additional amount based on performance. Are we allowed to pay the money to him via the department, or should we rather do it in a different way. Because in our case, we have an agreement. It's in the MOU that based on his performance, there's an additional amount. And now, I mean, it's in a month's time. We need to decide and make the payment. So I just want to ask.
George, so yeah, that payment can go through our office. That can be seen as a top-up payment to the postdoc. And as you said, you already it was already mentioned in the MOA that will be paid to the postdoc should he reach his milestones. So that is definitely a payment that can come through our office as a top-up payment. Yes.
But do you think it's best that we transfer the money to you, or
No, we
can
can
we
take
make it ourselves?
We can take it from your cost center. So once you submit the payment form to our office, we will then process the payment on our end, and we will then take it off from your cost center with your permission. Yes.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Zell. And
Mm.
maybe just a technical question about the required output. So my understanding was actually at the beginning that you need to, I mean, it's a technical point between submitting an article and publishing an article and having an article accepted or what. But actually my postdoc pointed to me the other day that it's not a requirement for him to have articles accepted. He must only submit the articles, by the end of a year. And I know you're not that. I mean, it's difficult to monitor, and it's so difficult in the academic world to get something published, and sometimes the time is not within your control, because some journals, they take a long time to for the review process, and papers are rejected. And so I guess there's not specific rules in terms of, I mean, there's a requirement, or there should be 2 articles, but I mean, at the end of the first year, I mean, I don't think there's a requirement that it must be published. No,
Published.
I think
No.
it's more submitted.
More submitted. You
or
correct.
completed, at least.
Yes. George, that also depends on the funder. Just remember now, I think you're referring specifically to the Director's Postdoctoral Fellowship Award. Those, there are 2 articles are required. So if it's submitted, it's in order as long as we have record of it, and that is needed for the person to receive his fellowship for the second year, for the renewal of the fellowship. So yes, we can also take that on a case-by-case basis. It is not the same for all funders, though. The 2 articles per annum is not a requirement for all funders. And that is something between the host and the postdoc. That should be agreed upon, the outputs that is needed. However, for the RPFP award, the 2 articles are compulsory. And when you say it's submitted or under review, etc., we will then refer that to the RPFP committee, and they will then decide whether the fellowship will be continued for the second year. In the majority of the cases, if it's submitted or in progress, we would accept that, and we will then take your word as the host also.
Okay.
That will be completed at the end of the day.
Thank you, Zell.
Thank you, George. Colleagues, if there's no other questions, we will make this slides as well as the recording available again. If there's any other documentation or information that you need, please reach out to our office at any stage. Let me just put that there. Just in case, sometimes it's just easier to go back to the chat than to go through all the documents. Yes, and we look forward to working with you, and we are here to support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zell.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Isel.
Thank you, Ismarie.